So although I was born in the UK, so in the 80s, I went to boarding school in Nigeria. So
Hmm.
a lot of so even when you came out with your songs, and I always tell my guests that, if I'm referring to music that came out towards the in the mid to late 80s, and I went to college in Alabama in '92. So I moved, I stayed in the US in the '90s, but I was in the '80s. So if I heard your record, I tell people that sometimes you might not recognize that, yes, it was big in the US and maybe big in Europe, but if it crossed over to parts of
Hmm.
Africa, we didn't have
Yes.
social media, we didn't have the internet. So it meant the record was really big, that it went internationally without you guys knowing. And so I just wonder then, when you mention these British bands that were doing extremely well, like We Love Loose Ends and Soul to Soul and Brand New Heavies and
Hmm.
stuff, and there was a different vibe between with the British soul,
Hmm.
that was happening out in the US. But it was a big thing for us to recognize that, yes, you decided to invest in sort of the UK and European
Hmm.
market as opposed to the US. What did you think about, well, let me try and master my hometown, or just forget the it's easy access in the UK? Or what was the
It,
thing?
I don't think I wouldn't say it's easy access. I would say that people generally gravitate towards where they're loved. It's oftentimes many of us are not loved up upon. That we're not loved upon at home. You have. I mean, not being funny. Tina Turner left the U.S. a long time. I remember Edwin Starr. From war, he ended up living in the UK. There were so many artists that
Alexander O'Neill?
Alexander O'Neill, Jocelyn Brown. I mean, literally, there were so many because it's not that I wanted to make it big here, but the music industry, the way radio was how radio was configured wasn't kind of in line with some certain types of artists. And so after a while, you found yourself not being the taste, or the butter on their bread or the jelly on their toast. It just wasn't what they weren't clamoring to get you to come. And then, but what I have found, I've traveled and I love South Africa. Is absolutely, I go to South Africa quite a lot, and I've been quite a lot, and I absolutely love Africa, the continent. I love Africa, and I love different parts of different countries within the continent that are on the continent because, like you said, what I have found is that the records that they sing of mine, they're in the albums. They've gone into the album,
Yeah.
and outside of Africa, then Brazil is a very big support. Brazil, when I tell you the second largest number of Black people in the world are in Brazil, and I found that out. They have all, I mean, they speak Portuguese. Some of them can't understand anything that if I'm speaking to them, but they can sing every song. I'm talking about songs that were not even singles. They know them and they still. And so what I have discovered is that I like to go where I'm loved on, and I like to go where I'm appreciated. And so, yes, I would have loved to have had the same levels of success in my home country that I've had in other countries and in other places. And for some, people don't realize that after that "Don't Make Me Over" album, I did multiple albums and did really, really well with with the "Love I Lost" and "When I'm Good and Ready" and just different projects that I had worked on for other labels. So people don't realize that, and so I feel as if many of us, we don't leave here because we don't want to make it here. We leave here because we want to make it. We want to be able to have our gifts, the gifts that we've been given, to be able to be used and to be embraced. And so, um, as much as I would, as much as I get frustrated or get traveling gives me anxiety sometimes, I go because I know that on the other side of it, there are going to be people who wanted to see me, and so that means everything.
It's interesting because I saw an interview with Tevin Campbell in South Africa, and,
Yes.
and he was saying that, oh, that he was surprised how people in South Africa knew his songs word to word, and one of the things that he enjoys doing is because he fit the appreciation, and and I think the same station, I think it's Espresso. I saw you, I think
Yes.
2017, perform
Yes.
perform there, and I said, wow. So as you were saying, that there is an appreciation in other parts of the world, because you know, we don't get to see any of you guys live, especially now with the pandemic.
Yeah.
So of course, when we do get to see any of our artists, we're really, you know, there's a clamor to see, because we don't get that every day. And I think in the US, you can get spoiled for choice, and you can say, no, we don't want to go see you. We want to see them. And I can see how, in a way that you may not always be appreciated there. I did see you on the Apollo when Sinbad introduced you, and you said, don't pass you. And I do wonder how that was then, going to the world famous Apollo, you know, and performing, because I saw you there dancing like, oh, I'm gonna have to rock the Apollo.
Yes, yes. It was amazing. It was really, I felt as if I was in somebody else's life, because as a young person, you know, you think Showtime at the Apollo, and you think the Apollo Theater, and you think Sandman, because I would watch, that was something we would watch. You know, we would watch Amateur Hour. You watched it. And so to be there and to be introduced by Sinbad, who was really such a gentleman, such a nice guy, really, really funny, and but he was so inviting. But being there, and I'm going to tell you, the funny thing is that I will not say the name, but there was an artist that had gone on, because you do these multiple tapings, and there was an artist that had gone on, and it was an artist with a hit record, but they didn't sound anything like the record. The audience booed, and I thought, oh God. So needless to say, I have to go on. So, you know, I was going to give my best voice, my best everything, because I knew they didn't care who you were. If you were not good, they didn't care if you had sold 1 million records. If you got on the Apollo stage and you flopped, they were going to let you know you flopped. And so for me, it was just like, I felt like I had really, had done this stuff. And it was very much the same thing when I did Soul Train, because I grew up as a little girl watching Don Cornelius and Soul Train. And so to be on Soul Train, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm on this, you know, first of getting there and the taping, you think it's this big, huge place, and it's not. It's a studio, and the dance, it was just, those were some of the highs for me. Some of the real highs for me were being able to perform in places that I only dreamt about or never imagined that I'd be on those stages. So that was everything. And third, another highlight for me ever is that I was a major Barry White fan, loved Barry White. And I ended up I did a radio show with him we were in Detroit. And it was me, Shantae Savage, and I opened up for him. And I'll never forget, I was so nervous, so nervous. And he put his hand, because he was a big man, and he tapped me. He said, you go out there and knock him dead, baby doll. And I thought, oh my God, that's Barry White. That's Barry White. Like, no, he didn't say that to me. And so
with his very deep voice as well.
So I was like, I could not believe it. I could not believe it. So I've had some really cool moments, some really, really, really cool moments. And just meeting people that I admired and respected. And you know, just like to go to the Apollo. I'm gonna say, I took my mom to see Gladys Knight at the Apollo, and my mom looks a lot like her. And we had backstage passes that a friend of mine worked for her label, and we were able to get passes. So I introduced my mom to her. Wow. And she looked, and she looked at Gladys, looked at my mom. My mom looked at her. She said, my mom said, people often say that I look like that we look alike. And Gladys said, you do. She said, you look like you could be my sister. So my mom, that was a high for my mother. You know what I'm saying? So sharing some of those types of moments have been really cool too. You know, just being able to engage with people that your parents liked and or admired, and you grew up listening to. Because Gladys Knight and the Pips, I could have sang every song, much like a Marvin Gaye. I grew up Marvin Gaye, because everybody said my dad looked like Marvin Gaye. So I guess I was kind of gravitating towards artists that kind of favored people that I really loved, you know.
You know, it's funny because Levi Little, when I interviewed him, he said that, you know, with all the success Black Street had, his parents didn't recognize until they saw him on Soul Train.
That's right. That's right.
Like, oh, you're famous. You were on Soul Train. You were
on Soul Train, exactly. And and the funny thing is that was, even now, when people see the tapes of it, they get excited because they're like, wait a minute, so that's right, you were on Soul Train. They get excited. And it makes me get excited because they're excited.
No, but it makes sense because I did watch it recently, the Apollo, And I was like, wow, she's really getting into it and trying to, and I don't know, because Father MC said he was always nervous going to Apollo just because of what you see, the booing and stuff, and that they didn't respect, didn't matter if you, as you've said, platinum
Yes.
artists and stuff, if you don't entertain us, we boo you the same way we boo the
And that was true. And I felt so bad. I was sitting there, I wanted to cry for the artist. I was sitting there thinking, oh my God, that was, and literally they booed. I mean, they booed. It was, and they had to stop and tape again and ask the audience not, yeah, it was horrible. Yeah. I was sitting there thinking, I would not want to be her. Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How different was that from being on Top of the Pops, which was our British version of Showtime and Apollo?
But let me say this, I was just as nervous on Top of the Pops because of the historical, part, the aspect of how big that was. It was comparable. Top of the Pops was like our American Bandstand,
Okay.
so, and it was kind of a happy combination between American Bandstand and Soul Train. So because you had the diverse artists. And so when I did Top of the Pops, the funny thing is that I'm used to singing live, and it was very difficult for me. It was very difficult for me to sing. They changed it, but the first time I was on there, they had us lip sync, and I thought, I can't. It was so hard. I had to study because I never ever sing a song the same. I don't ever sing it the same way, and so I had to listen to the version that they were going to use, and literally had to practice the song, because I'm used to singing it live, and I kind of embellish and add a little this and a little bit of that. So it was difficult, but I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I got to meet some really cool people at a number of the tapings, and so it was really fun because I'd done Top of the Pops, and I did their one of their holiday specials and all. So that was fun. Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, to press the notification bell so that you can be notified when we do have a new interview. Loads to come, but thanks a lot for watching.